UFC middleweight champion at 15-0. Khabib retired at 29-0. Simple math says Khamzat needs 14 more wins. But when you actually break down what those 14 fights would require, the numbers reveal something absolutely horrifying. We're talking about a fighter who's already been hospitalized multiple times, coughing up blood, thinking he was going to die. And now he has to fight 14 killers without losing once. The clock is ticking, his body is breaking down, and what we're about to show you makes this dream look more like a nightmare. Let's set the scene. August 2025, UFC 319. Khamzat Chimaev just choked out Dricus du Plessis to become the middleweight champion, extending his perfect record to 15-0. The MMA world explodes with one question. Can he reach Khabib's legendary 29-0? On the surface, it sounds achievable, just 14 more wins, right? But here's what most people don't know. Khamzat is 31 years old right now, born January 5th, 1994. When Khabib retired in October 2020, he was 32. That gives Khamzat roughly 1 year to accomplish what took Khabib 12 years in the UFC to achieve. Already, the timeline looks insane, but the real story is darker. Khabib built his 29-0 record with a young, healthy body. He started fighting professionally at 20 years old and entered the UFC at 23 with minimal damage. Khamzat? He didn't start MMA until his early 20s and entered the UFC at 26 with a body that was already accumulating serious mileage. And there's something else lurking in Khamzat's past. Something that nearly ended his career before it truly began. Something that makes every single one of those 14 remaining fights a medical gamble. December 2020. The UFC is hyping up this terrifying new prospect named Khamzat Chimaev, who just demolished 2 opponents in 10 days. He's scheduled to fight Leon Edwards. Everyone wants to see this monster. Then, silence. Khamzat disappears. No updates, no fights. Months pass, and when the truth finally comes out, it's genuinely terrifying. Khamzat contracted COVID-19, and it nearly killed him. We're not talking about mild symptoms. The 26-year-old was hospitalized multiple times, coughing up blood. His manager later revealed that Khamzat thought he was going to die. The UFC had to fly him from Europe to the United States specifically for treatment because his condition was that severe. In March 2021, Khamzat posts on Instagram, "I think I'm done." He announces his retirement at 26 years old, before he even fought a ranked opponent. The fight with Leon Edwards gets canceled 3 separate times. An entire year of his athletic prime just vanished. And according to sources, Khamzat continues to battle lingering effects from this illness even today. But it gets worse. Fast forward to January 2024. Khamzat posts disturbing images from a hospital bed. He's hooked up to machines. Visible rashes cover his body. 3 photos show him in intensive care. Another reveals a torn hand ligament. He deletes the post shortly after, releasing only a cryptic message. "It's good. I'm coming back for my belt." This isn't a one-time health scare. This is a pattern. Torn ligaments, mystery illnesses, COVID complications. Reddit threads are filled with MMA fans noting that Khamzat overtrains and doesn't cut weight properly, accelerating his body's breakdown. And now this same body has to survive 14 more wars against the most dangerous middleweights on the planet. So let's do the actual math. The math that nobody wants to talk about. Khamzat currently averages 1.6 fights per year in the UFC. At this pace, 14 more victories would take 8.75 years. That puts Khamzat at nearly 40 years old. And here's the brutal reality. No middleweight champion in UFC history has successfully defended a title past age 37 more than once. Maintaining elite performance past 35 is exceptionally rare. Past 37? Nearly unheard of. But maybe Khamzat speeds up his pace, right? Let's say he fights twice a year. That's still 7 years, making him 38 years old by the time he hits 29-0. And remember, we're assuming perfect health and 0 losses during this entire stretch. Compare this to Khabib's path. Khabib fought 29 times over 12 years, from 2008 to 2020. He fought 16 times before even entering the UFC, building his record against regional competition when his body was young and recovery was easy. By the time he faced elite UFC competition, he had time on his side. Khamzat doesn't have that luxury. He's already 31 with significant accumulated damage. Now let's talk about who he'd have to beat. The current UFC middleweight top 5 looks like a murderer's row. Dricus du Plessis at number 1 contender. The former champion who will almost certainly get an immediate rematch. A durable, pressure-fighting savage. Nasruddin Imavov at number 2. Just defeated the legendary Israel Adesanya. Young, hungry, elite striking. Sean Strickland at number 3. Former champion with a granite chin and relentless cardio. Fights at an insane pace for 25 minutes. Israel Adesanya at number 4. 2-time champion with the most sophisticated striking in MMA history, even in decline, capable of highlight reel knockouts. Renier de Ridder at number 5, submission specialist who just beat Robert Whittaker. Every single one of these fighters can end Khamzat's undefeated streak in one moment. One punch, one submission, one bad night. And here's the bone-chilling part. Khamzat has absorbed 120 significant strikes in his entire UFC career, but 119 of them came from Gilbert Burns alone in their 2022 war. That means he's been virtually untouched in every other UFC fight. That's not sustainable, that's not skill, that's luck. And luck runs out. Anderson Silva's UFC record of 16 consecutive wins is considered nearly untouchable. Khamzat would need to nearly double that, while fighting killers, while dealing with chronic health issues, while his body ages past its athletic prime. The statistical probability isn't just low, it's borderline impossible. So what happens if Khamzat actually tries this? Best case scenario, he wins his next 2 to 3 fights, stays healthy, and continues building momentum. But even then, one illness, one torn ligament, one random health complication like we've already seen multiple times, and the entire timeline collapses. Worst case scenario, his body breaks down in the next year or two, forcing early retirement before he even gets close to 29 and or worse, he suffers his first loss and the entire narrative evaporates. Here's what most people don't consider. Khabib had a perfect exit strategy. After his father died from COVID complications in July 2020, Khabib made a promise to his mother. He'd fight one final time, then retire. He kept that promise at UFC 254, leaving undefeated at the peak of his powers. That psychological liberation, the ability to walk away before the damage accumulated, before the losses came, cannot be overstated. Khamzat has no such exit plan. Every fight now becomes a potential nightmare where one loss doesn't just end a win streak, it demolishes an entire legacy narrative. The pressure to remain undefeated grows exponentially with each victory, affecting training, weight cutting, and fight night performance. And his health record suggests he's one illness away from disaster. If Khamzat somehow reaches 29-0, it won't just match Khabib's record. It would represent perhaps the most improbable achievement in MMA history. Think about what this would require. Perfect health for 8 to 9 years despite a proven history of catastrophic medical issues. Defeating 14 consecutive elite middleweights without a single loss, mistake, or bad night. Maintaining championship-level performance into his late 30s, something almost no fighter has done. Surpassing the longest UFC win streak in history by nearly double. The current data shows that in 2025 alone, over 20 fighters lost their undefeated records in the UFC. Perfect records crumble constantly under elite competition, and here's the thing that makes this whole question so fascinating. It's not really about whether Khamzat can do it. It's about which factor breaks first, his health, his luck, or Father Time himself. Only a handful of fighters in MMA history have reached 29-plus wins undefeated. Julio Cesar Neves Jr. at 30-0, but he fought in regional Brazilian promotions. Khabib at 29-0 in the UFC's deepest division. Fedor at 27-0 before his first loss. The common thread? Most of them weren't facing UFC-level competition for all those fights. Khamzat would need to beat 14 consecutive ranked UFC middleweights in the deepest era of the sport. The math isn't just scary, it's a statistical nightmare. But here's what nobody's talking about. Khabib didn't just retire because of his father. There was another reason he walked away at 29-0, something he revealed years later that completely changes how we should view undefeated records. And when you understand what really made Khabib stop, you'll realize Khamzat might face the exact same decision much sooner than anyone expects.